All right. Well, my name is Mary. I'm an alcoholic. It's good to be here. Thanks, Sherry, for asking me. Thanks for your service. Um, I do have experience with the steps as they're laid out in the Big Book, with the help of several different Big Book step study sponsors, but one at a time. I have completed steps 1 through 9, and I continue to practice 10, 11, and 12. This is me practicing 12. I do it daily. I have had many sponsors over the years, some that I return to in Big Book, and sometimes I've just had like a 10th and 11th step buddy. And as long as I'm staying on top of my inventory, that's what I feel matters the most with somebody who knows me quite well, knows my stuff, as we call it. I don't really know most of you. I know Sherry a little bit, but I just want to talk a little bit about how I got to this step, and I'll go into the book and talk exactly about what I did. And um, I my sobriety date is September 20th of 1998, and I have written in my book that I took my third step in February of 1999 out of this book with a sponsor on my knees. And I got up from that third step and I had a notebook and I had my instructions and I started writing right away. So I actually consider the bottom of 63, where it says next, we launched into action. I consider that part of step 3. In fact, I consider everything we do after step 3 to be step 3, because that's proof that I actually took the step. But just briefly about my drinking, I had the allergy from the first time I drank. Um, I did not grow up in an alcoholic home. My parents were heavy nicotine addicts. They were heavy smokers. Um, they both died, I believe, because of conditions related to smoking. My mother was deeply codependent. She was socialized to be that way. So my father was very unavailable and abusive, and I have 3 older brothers. And when we talk about the trickle down theory, I think abuse trickles down. I don't think benefits trickle down. That's been my experience. So I grew up in a very chaotic home. I had secrets from a very young age that were not my fault, that were imposed on me. And I had to kind of live a double life. I was actually a pretty happy kid. I was involved in life. I was an artistic kid. I was in theater and I loved drawing and all of the arts. I loved school. I seemed to be very good at school. I was a good student and it came easily to me. Things started getting bad when I started drinking. When I was 13, I had a friend who lived across the mountain. Her parents hung out at the golf course all the time. That was not a culture that I grew up with. They drank almost all day. And I had my first drink at their house. I became violent almost immediately, slapped my friend across the face. There was a lot of rage and trauma bottled up inside of me that I wasn't able to integrate into my life. It was too much. But alcohol set me free in a way. Um, and that began an adventure of me and my friend discovering drugs, rock and roll and sex. It was like sex, drugs, rock and roll. And drinking was there all the time from the beginning. And we used to steal the liquor from her parents and fill it back up with water. Like, I remember the first night we drank, that night I had like a brown liquor, and then we took a whole bottle of triple sec, and I loved it because it was like candy. And I had had some alcohol at my aunt's house as just playing around, and it was creme de menthe. So it was like this sugar addiction, weird candy thing. But things progressed. I did well in school for a while, but my goals and ambitions started going down and the interest in partying started going up. So I was exchanging my very high gifts that God gave me, and I was exchanging those for parties and boys and escape, essentially. I do have serious trauma in my childhood, and I do believe that alcohol helped me survive that. However, it stopped working. It turned against me. It was never something I controlled. For a long time, I never thought it was something I had to actually quit. But when I got into college and I was, still making straight A's, even though I was drinking at high school and doing drugs in high school during the day, skipping school, things that were not the behavior of an honors student who was like wanting to get into NYU and have this great life. Um, But I did get into a college and I started getting arrested and we started getting in trouble. Consequences started to really start to pile up. And I was threatened to be kicked out of school. And so that's my choice was to be kicked out of school or go to AA. And being in school and being a straight A student was my way of proving to the world that I didn't have a problem. I still have my life together because I was still doing well in school. So this was a very important threat for me. So I discovered AA. I found that I liked it, that I liked the people. I had something of a religious upbringing. We were in a Catholic church that was actually a very positive experience for me. We left that church when I moved from New Jersey to North Carolina with my family, and we found another church that was loving and joyful, and it was a very positive God experience. I just didn't have parents that could apply the things they loved about God to their lives. And I also felt very abandoned by God, betrayed by God, because I'd been left in this very horrible family. Um, but when I came to AA, I really liked the people. I loved the stories. I loved the honesty. And I found a sponsor, and she said, well, what we do is we meet for an hour a week and we read through the big book and we do the steps out of the big book. And I said, okay, whatever. And so she kind of went very quickly through one, two, three. And at this time, I was only 19 years old. And I had a sense of my alcoholism. I had a sense that I was not normal. And I saw the way I behaved. Even in college, I was like off the charts, like insanely drunk all the time. Um, and I loved it. I loved drinking. I loved partying. I loved the wildness of it. Anyway, I did not do the work fully. I'm like one of the people in the more about alcoholism where they say he made a good beginning. I made a good beginning in that I wrote down what I hated about everybody and how much they had harmed me. And then I met an amazing man and I left AA and I didn't think I needed it. And I stayed sober a little while, but I had that experience of the mental blank spot where I was sitting at a table and I did have, I had started like, oh, I can just have some drugs here and there. Didn't think about it too much. And I was sitting at a table, I was working in a restaurant, like I didn't have a problem, but I was not drinking. And then I looked at a drink and then it was in my mouth. And that took me on a relapse that was 5 years long. That was it was like flushing myself down a toilet. Like it was the worst, ugliest, just awful time. And it lasted for 5 years. And I had hit a bottom. I was arrested. My mom had to come pick me up in jail at 5 in the morning. And my mother represented sort of daytime me, and I was nighttime me, and those two worlds had never collided before. And then when those two worlds collided, the gig was up. And I remember looking in the mirror and realizing like I hadn't done this work, and nobody offered to send me to treatment. Like that wasn't even an option. And I was having DTs, but I came back to AA and all I knew was we meet for an hour a week. The steps are in the book and that you get a sponsor. And I was suicidal. I was a mess, but I was like, I didn't do it. Maybe it'll work. I actually called that old sponsor and she was still sober. And she was like, oh my God, I can't believe this. That was a very powerful thing for me that she was still sober. So I started going to meetings and I didn't find anyone right away who did the big book. I just got whoever I could. She was kind of vague. She was like, here, just flipping through the 12 and 12. And it just didn't feel very, I was like, no, I please tell me what to do. I don't even know how to breathe. Like, I don't know. I mean, I was bankrupt in every way. Like I was working in a coffee shop and living with my mother, and I just was a total mess. And I heard a woman. I started asking around who does the steps out of the big book, and everybody pointed toward this one woman, Suzanne, and they were all afraid of her. And she had begun doing the steps with someone in Florida based on her boyfriend, Harry, who moved from Florida to Asheville. And he had gotten the message from Dale, who has passed away, sadly. Dale was from Hyannis. And that's how the message came to me. I knew nothing of Big Book Step Study. I didn't really know much, and so I sat with her at her kitchen table and we started doing the work. She gave me the instructions to read the first 164 pages and call her when I was ready to go forward. I called her sooner and I said, I don't care. I just want to do it. Just give me some homework because I'm a good student. So this method really worked for me because this writing in the book and studying, that really worked for me. It gave me something to focus on. And I was going to meetings every day. I was doing 90 and 90. I did everything everyone said. I took service positions. I did all those things. But I was also deeply walking through the book one line at a time. I was looking up words that she told me. I highlighted it with the three different colors, the directions, the bad results, and the good results. And I found that very soothing because I felt that I was taking action. And even before taking the third step, there's a part in the book where there's a story where it says, there's a guy who says, when I made up my mind to go through with the process, my condition was relieved. That was even before the third step. When I just said, fine, I'll kill myself after this in some way that nobody will realize it's suicide because I cannot do that to my family, but I'm going to try it. I didn't know any other thing. I hadn't been to therapy ever. I hadn't done treatment. I hadn't done any of that stuff. I had read a lot of books and I thought I was spiritual, but so when I finally just said I want to do the work, I felt my condition, like the intense desire to drink, it did come back. The thoughts of drinking came back, but I was very relieved and I sat with her and I learned about alcoholism, and by the time I got to this part of the work, she told me, she said, this is a big deal. It's a very big deal. And at the same time, you're just deciding to go through with the rest of the steps. You do need to have some concept of a higher power that is positive, that you're willing to do the dictates of. And it could be principles. It could be I'm turning myself over to the high ideals of honesty and integrity and whatever. There's the four absolutes they have, absolute love and all these things. Love has not come very easily to me. Resentment comes easy, but I can turn myself over to the principles of the steps. I could do that. I wasn't sure that God was going to help me, but I knew by going deeply into step one that I was doomed. No matter how smart I was, I realized that what I thought was my best asset was my worst enemy. And that what I needed was a deep change in my desires, because it was the desire to put poison into my body that I knew was going to kill me or someone else. That desire is what needed to change. So this idea of turning my will, what I want. So I have to turn my desires, my wants. That is what needs to be turned over to a higher guide, a higher source, something else, because I can't fix it myself. And I saw that in my life, in my drinking and looking at it. And I saw the mental blank spot. I saw all that stuff. So by the time I got here, I was willing. I was ready for something new. I was ready to throw myself into it fully. And so I was told we would meet together and read the third step together out of the book on our knees. And we held hands and did that together. But before that, we read this. And I like that I might actually speak a little longer because it took me so long to to get to this. This idea that, rarely have we seen a person fail. I know in the original text he wrote never. Because when people fully surrender and live this way of life, they tend to succeed at sobriety, at relationships, at life. They tend to actually do quite well. And I've seen it over the years that I've been in recovery. I've seen people do the work and leave AA too. I've seen people do the work and relapse. I've seen people do the work and commit suicide. So I don't know. I don't know what they did. I don't know what they were dealing with that I don't have. I don't know them, but I know me. I know me. And I know that I was like an alcoholic, just like these people were. So just this, the main thing is I got to be honest. I just got to be, that's the most important thing, rigorous honesty. And then he says, if you decided you want what we have, and I remember somebody said, what do we have? A way out. It's not about, it's not about people having a nice car or a great marriage, which those are nice things to have. But for a while, I kind of thought that was the end game. Like, I'm going to make myself ready for a relationship. That's what this is going to do. Not, also not true. No guarantee there. But what we have is this. It's not some magical thing that I made up. It's not some exterior thing. It's a way out. It's this path. It's the steps. It's the instructions. And obviously it's scary. It's but hang on. You only have to do one at a time. Just calm down. Just do this one fully. And I learned so many things just by the process of doing the work of how I could approach life. Like just slow down and focus on what you're doing in front of you. Just don't go into the future. Just go fully into this. And oddly enough, being present, which I believe is the goal of the steps, and because God is only in the present moment, the complete opposite of all the stuff that we talk about in here, the selfishness, is like having an open heart about the world and being curious about it and experiencing it as it is instead of trying to change it. And, I got to deal with my stuff and how I feel about it. But as I read through this with my sponsor, I was like, yeah, I can kind of relate to this. But I really didn't get it until I did my inventory, to be honest. We talked about a lot of things. But I did feel, just to go back, yes, alcohol is too much for me. Really, my mind is too much for me. And nobody can get in there except for God. A therapist can try. An alcoholic can get in pretty far in there. But there's going to be time I'm alone in there with this. The only thing that can get in there is something beyond my mind, beyond my body, beyond this world. And I believe there is something. I don't know fully what it is, but I believe that it is the source of all life. And that I'm interested in. So I was willing to try. And at the time, my concept of God was very different than it is now. And I did. I started the turning point and I really threw myself in and I got so much relief and peace of that commitment. And then we read through the work and she said, this is what we're going to do one at a time. We're not going to do it all right now. But she didn't hide anything from me. And she's like, I'm not going to ask you to do something I haven't done or anything that's not in this book. And that is how I sponsor my sponsees. So, she said, I just ask that you try to give this help someone else after I take you through. I was like, yeah. Let's get to the writing. Yeah. But that's what my first sponsor. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Let's get to the writing. But I think it's very important to spend a lot of time on steps 1 and 2, especially, but also on 3 to consider what am I actually doing here, and this idea that I really got A and B of the ABC here, but I just wasn't sure about C. I'm still not sure about it all the time, but I know that I've been sober for 20 something years just by doing this work. I mean, I did therapy after I did this work, but this is what my foundation is, and I still do it, and it still works. So I've marked some things in here. He says, we turned our will and our life, which will is my desire and my thinking. My life is my actions. I'm going to turn this over. I'm going to offer it up for direction and guidance to something other than my own willpower and intellect. What does that mean? Okay, the first requirement, I have to be convinced that any life run on self-will is not a success. Okay, well, what does that mean? I'm trying to punch my way through life, and I see it. I mean, I hated it in meetings when people would talk about driving resentments, but driving on the road is such a good little microcosm of me interacting with people in the world and wills, all people's wills, like pushing against each other. And I could see this in everybody else. Like I could see it in you, but it was very hard to see it in myself. I started to have to talk through examples with my sponsor, and I could see it. I had a boyfriend in Big Book who said, this reading is like a knee to the groin. Like it is, no matter when I read it, like even tonight, I was like, oh yeah, that's still me. Like the one that's the hardest is like, I'm still trying to get my way, even when I'm being nice. Being nice is one of the most manipulative ways to try to get my way instead of being curious about the world, experiencing it, responding to it, checking in with myself, blah, blah, blah. All these things I had no idea how to do. I just was punching my way through life, angry at everyone for not being what I wanted them to be. I had a script for everyone, and nobody was following it, so they all deserved to be hated. And I had a script in my mind of what I thought they were doing that probably wasn't even happening most of the time, and I was reacting to that. So I'm reacting to a script in my mind, or what I think you're thinking about me, or what I think you should do, or what I think. I wasn't even responding to reality. I wasn't in reality. So of course nothing went well. I was a victim. Was I victimized in my life? Yes, I was in a very serious way. I'm not minimizing that. But I was just like, oh, the world is against me. I couldn't see how I was participating in my own life. And I was a victim of a delusion that I could just be happy if I can just manage the world around me. Like if I can just fix all these circumstances around me, that'll make me feel better. And I had to do trial and error to find out. Guess what? That's not true. And I had to do some of that in sobriety too. So I can relate to a lot of these things. I'm an actor, so I love a good director. I love a good script. I don't understand it all the time when it's God, because you don't get like a very clear, sometimes I get clear directions intuitively in this still small voice, or the world around me will show me something, but it's a it's a process to develop this faith. So I learned that my real problem was selfishness. Again, I didn't understand the depth of it until I did my 4-step. So the first thing is I got to be convinced that my life's not working by the way I'm doing it, which is on self-will. I'm not including God in my anything. Okay. So the next thing is, well, God makes it possible. It's going to be okay. Like, you got to be rid of the selfishness. You can't do it on your own. But here's the second thing: God makes it possible. All right. So now we got to stop playing God. That's the third thing. Well, okay, if God is everywhere and knows everything, okay, I'm not everyone. I don't know everything. I had to start admitting that I was limited and that I was dependent on this power. And guess what? Like, what a relief. Like, I am so much more aware of how limited I am, and and that awareness makes me realize how great the source, the God, the creative intelligence, all these things, God is. So if I really take this position, it's such a relief, because really the directions, the script is right here. The script is the steps, and the answers come through the work. I thought I was going to have a white light experience and then do the work. That didn't happen. And I don't think that's what's supposed to happen. You just, like, the spiritual experience happens during the work. The relationship is built during the work. And then the last part is, okay, now we're here. So we say this prayer and we do this decision. And I say this prayer very often. I don't know that I was reborn in this moment. I was very excited. I felt a new, fresh excitement about the future because I was doing this new thing. And I did the prayer with my sponsor. And like I said, I got up off my knees and I started writing right away. Like, that to me is the last part of step 3, is launching into the action. So there's these pieces that make up step 3. I got to have these realizations and then do these actions. And as I said in the beginning, every step after step 3 is step 3. If I'm not doing my 11th step, I'm not doing my 3rd step. I'm not honoring my 3rd step commitment. So that's always a good gauge for me. There's so much more I could say. I've talked way too long already, probably, but I didn't like this idea for a long time because my concept of God was not big enough. It wasn't loving enough. It just wasn't enough. Like, it's my concept. And as I have gotten older and as I've experienced life more, I'm much more interested in the creator of the universe. Like, I'm much more interested in their perspective than this little one right here. Because, like, I if I put my arms out, I can't really see past my arms. Like, my eyeballs don't see past. I am limited. I am limited. So I'm much more interested in the higher power now than I was even when I wrote this. And I have very clear script. And as I said, it works when I do it. Do I always do it? No, I do not. Do I do it perfectly? No, I do not. And he says it in there. And we're not saints. We're just trying to grow. And I've grown, but I'm still growing. And I still get angry and I still get resentful. But now I have a way out. A way out. And that's what we all have in this work. What a gift. I didn't have to come up with it. It was a script handed to me, and all I got to do is tell you guys about it and how I did it and followed directions. Like, what a relief. I don't have to figure anything out. I don't have to make anything up. And I want to hear what you have to say, so I'm going to shut up. And thank you so much for having me. I love this work, and I'm very excited about it. Thanks.